Aaron lived in a town where life often felt like walking on a tightrope. The streets were lined with small houses, many of them showing signs of wear from years of neglect. People knew each other, yet beneath the surface, there were old grudges that simmered quietly. Families that had once been friends were now rivals. Children played in narrow alleys, but the laughter was sometimes mixed with whispers of caution. Aaron was aware of all this, but he had always tried to stay on the side of honesty and kindness. He believed that people should be judged by their actions, not by the side of the town they came from. One warm afternoon, Aaron decided to take a walk outside the busy streets of his neighborhood. The sun was soft, not too hot, and a gentle breeze carried the smell of the nearby river. He enjoyed these walks because they allowed him to think, to observe the world quietly without the constant noise of people arguing over old conflicts. As he strolled past an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, he noticed something unusual. A small group of boys, older and rough-looking, were gathered around a little girl. She was no older than 8 or 9, with hair falling in soft curls around her face. Her eyes were wide with fear, and she clutched a small doll to her chest as if it could protect her from the world. Aaron felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had seen many arguments in the town, and he knew what could happen if someone like that girl was caught in the middle of a fight. Without thinking too much about his own safety, he moved closer. "Hey, leave her alone," Aaron shouted. His voice echoed across the quiet streets. The boys turned toward him, their faces a mix of surprise and anger. They were bigger than Aaron, and he knew a fight could easily go badly for him. But the girl's fear tugged at something inside him that he couldn't ignore. The boys laughed, at him, a harsh mocking sound. "This doesn't concern you," one of them said. "Go back to where you belong." Aaron shook his head, stepping closer. "I can't just watch her get hurt," he replied firmly. The little girl looked up, at him, a mix of hope and fear in her eyes. She didn't speak, but Aaron could tell she understood that he was trying to help. Suddenly, one of the boys lunged at Aaron, swinging a fist meant to scare him away. Aaron barely dodged, but another boy grabbed a piece of wood from the ground and swung it toward the girl. Without thinking, Aaron pushed himself in front of her. The wood struck his shoulder hard, sending a sharp pain through his body. He stumbled but stayed on his feet, shielding the girl as best as he could. The boys hesitated, surprised that someone had actually stepped in. Aaron's determination, his refusal to back down, made them pause. It was a small moment, but it gave the girl a chance. She took it and ran, her small legs carrying her as fast as they could through the narrow streets. Aaron watched her go, wincing from the pain in his shoulder. The boys realized they were no match for his courage, or perhaps they felt guilty, and they eventually scattered, muttering threats but not daring to follow. Aaron leaned against the wall of the warehouse, trying to catch his breath. His shoulder throbbed, and every movement reminded him of the blow he had taken. But he didn't regret it. Seeing the girl run safely was enough to make the pain feel worthwhile. He stayed there for a moment, watching her disappear down the street, and felt a strange mix of relief and worry. He didn't know who she was, but he knew that protecting her had changed something in him. Word of what happened spread quickly through the town. People whispered about Aaron's bravery, some admiring it, others shaking their heads and warning him that he had taken a dangerous risk. Aaron didn't mind the attention. For him, the important thing was that the girl was safe. Later that evening, as he sat in his small kitchen nursing a cup of tea, he thought about the girl's face. There was something in her eyes that stayed with him, a mixture of fear, trust, and innocence. It reminded him that sometimes the right choice was not the easy one. Meanwhile, the girl had returned home. Her mother, Mara, was waiting for her, and immediately noticed her daughter's frightened state. Questions poured out of her in a rush, her voice full of panic and concern. When Lena explained in bits and pieces what had happened, Mara felt a wave of relief mixed with anger. Relief that her child was safe, and anger that someone had dared to endanger them in the first place. But soon, Mara learned the full story. Aaron had taken the blow meant for her daughter. He had put himself in danger to save someone from a family she had long seen as an enemy. This revelation left Mara with a storm of emotions she hadn't expected. She was grateful, deeply so, but she was also cautious. In a town like theirs, gestures of bravery could be misinterpreted. People often had hidden motives, and yet, something about Aaron's act didn't feel like politics or strategy. It felt pure, simple, and human. Mara found herself thinking about him long after the incident, wondering about the kind of person who would risk so much for someone else. Aaron, for his part, tried to return to his normal life. He went to work, helped his family with daily tasks, and slowly tended to the bruise on his shoulder. But even in his routines, he couldn't shake the image of the girl and the fear in her eyes. He realized that what he had done was not just a single moment of courage. It was a turning point. It was the start of something bigger, though he didn't yet know how it would unfold. As the sun set over the small town, painting the streets in shades of orange and gold, Aaron reflected on what had happened. Life was unpredictable, full of danger and unexpected choices, but that afternoon he had chosen to act not out of fear or pride, but out of a simple, undeniable truth. Protecting someone who could not protect themselves was always worth the risk. The evening ended quietly, but the story of Aaron's bravery was just beginning to ripple through the lives of the people around him. Little did he know, the simple act of shielding a child would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge old beliefs, create new bonds, and change the way his town saw courage, loyalty, and humanity. After the incident, Aaron's life returned to a sense of normal routine, but he could feel that something had shifted, not in him exactly, but in the way the town seemed to look at him. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors, glancing as he walked by. Some praised his courage quietly, while others shook their heads, warning that he had stepped into dangerous territory. Aaron paid little attention to the gossip. What mattered to him was the little girl, Lena, and the knowledge that she was safe. During the days following the incident, Aaron's shoulder gradually began to heal. The pain lessened, but every now and then, a sharp ache reminded him of the blow he had taken. His friends and family were concerned. "You were lucky it wasn't worse," his mother said, fussing over him as she pressed a warm cloth to his shoulder. "You have to be more careful. You can't just throw yourself into danger for anyone." Aaron nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he had done exactly what he was meant to do. Protecting someone who couldn't protect themselves didn't feel like danger. It felt like the only option, and yet he was aware that not everyone would see it that way. In a town so accustomed to division and mistrust, an act of kindness toward a member of the other side could raise suspicion, as easily as it could inspire respect. Meanwhile, Mara, Lena's mother, was struggling with her own thoughts. She had spent sleepless nights worrying about her daughter, replaying the events in her mind. She could not believe the bravery of the man who had risked himself for Lena. And yet, her heart carried a quiet fear. How could someone from a family she had long considered her enemy show such courage? What did it mean for her daughter, for her family, and for the fragile balance of their town? Despite her caution, Mara found herself drawn to Aaron. She began noticing him from a distance, watching how he carried himself as he moved through the streets. There was a calmness in him, a quiet strength that set him apart. She had always believed courage meant confrontation, loud gestures, and defiance, but Aaron's bravery was different. It was subtle yet powerful, compassionate yet fearless. Mara realized she had never seen anything like it before. One afternoon, Mara made a decision. She could no longer simply watch from the shadows. She gathered herself and walked toward Aaron's small home, carrying a basket of freshly baked bread. She told herself that it was just a gesture of gratitude, nothing more. When Aaron opened the door and saw her, there was a brief moment of surprise. He had not expected her to come, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. I wanted to thank you," Mara said finally, her voice soft but steady, "for what you did for Lena. You saved her, and I don't know how to repay you." Aaron smiled gently, wincing slightly as he adjusted his shoulder. "You don't need to repay me," he said. "I didn't do it for anything in return. I just couldn't let her get hurt, that's all." Her eyes studied him for a long moment. There was honesty in his words that Mara could not ignore. She realized that this was not someone seeking favor, recognition, or influence. This was someone who had acted purely out of kindness, a quality she had almost forgotten existed in her world. Over the following days, Mara began to check in on Aaron more often, sometimes bringing small meals, sometimes just stopping by to see how he was doing. At first, these visits were brief, cautious, and polite, but gradually the conversations became longer. They spoke about simple things at first: how to bake bread properly, the way the seasons changed in their town, small memories from childhood. Then, slowly, they began talking about more personal things: their families, their fears, and their hopes for a future where life could feel less divided. Aaron found Mara's presence comforting. There was a warmth in her voice, a calmness in her demeanor, that made him feel understood in a way he had not expected. For Mara, seeing Aaron in moments of quiet kindness, tending to his small garden, helping a neighbor with a heavy load, or simply sitting quietly with a cup of tea, revealed a side of humanity she had long forgotten in a town shadowed by rivalry. Even Lena seemed to sense the connection forming between her mother and the man who had saved her life. She would often peek around the corner when Mara visited Aaron, shyly smiling and waving when Aaron noticed her. There was a sense of trust in the girl, a belief that her protector was someone who could be relied upon. Lena's innocence and trust strengthened the bond between Aaron and Mara, reminding them both that true courage often leaves a gentle trail rather than a loud one. But the town's whispers did not cease. Some people disapproved, viewing Mara's growing trust in Aaron as dangerous. "He's one of them," they said quietly, warning her of imagined threats. "You can't trust him." Mara listened, but she did not let their words sway her. She had seen Aaron's heart through his actions. She had seen that courage could exist without malice and that kindness could thrive even in a place surrounded by suspicion. As weeks passed, Mara began to feel a shift in her own heart. She was no longer just grateful. She was starting to admire Aaron for more than just his bravery. There was a quiet integrity to him, a consistency that could not be faked. Each visit, each conversation, each simple act of care deepened her respect and understanding of him. It was a slow, gentle process, like water carving a path through stone, but it was undeniable. Aaron, meanwhile, began to think more about the future. He realized that this encounter had changed more than just one afternoon. It had changed the way he saw his town, his neighbors, and even himself. He had acted out of instinct, but the result had shown him that bravery was not just about fighting or risking harm. It was about choosing to do what was right, even when it was difficult or unpopular. And so, life continued, but with subtle differences. Mara visited more often, sometimes just to share a story or a laugh, and Aaron welcomed her presence. Lena's joyful energy reminded them both why courage and kindness mattered. The simple act of protecting a child had opened doors that neither of them could have imagined, creating a quiet but meaningful connection that would grow stronger with each passing day. By the time the sun set over the town, casting long shadows along the narrow streets, Aaron and Mara were no longer strangers. Their paths had crossed in a moment of danger, but now, in the calm that followed, they began to see the potential for something more. Trust, respect, and even the beginnings of friendship were slowly replacing fear, suspicion, and division. And in the hearts of all three, the man, the mother, and the little girl, a small seed of hope had been planted, one that promised the possibility of a brighter, gentler future in a town that had long forgotten what it meant to care. As the days turned into weeks, Aaron and Mara's bond grew slowly but steadily. Their encounters were no longer just about gratitude and courtesy. They began to share thoughts, stories, and experiences that were personal and meaningful. Mara would often come by in the late afternoon, carrying something small, bread, fruit, or even a simple cup of tea. At first, Aaron felt a bit awkward, unsure how to receive such attention. He was not used to people expressing kindness toward him in such a direct way, especially from someone from the other side of the town. Mara, on the other hand, was learning to trust him. It was not an easy process. Her mind constantly reminded her of the divisions that had existed for years. Her family and neighbors had long warned her against forming connections with people from Aaron's neighborhood. But she could not ignore what she had witnessed. She had seen a man put himself in harm's way for her child. She had seen courage and compassion in its purest form. Every day, that image became stronger in her heart than the fears that society had tried to instill. In her, Aaron too found himself thinking about Mara and her daughter more than he expected. It was not just concern for Lena's safety that occupied his thoughts, though that was always present. It was Mara's strength, her quiet dignity, and the way she navigated a difficult world with care and determination. He began to admire her patience and her ability to see goodness even in a town weighed down by suspicion. It was a respect that grew naturally, without force or expectation. One afternoon, Mara arrived carrying a small basket of fruit. "I thought you might like these," she said, setting it gently on the table. Aaron smiled and thanked her. They sat together for a while, speaking about the simple pleasures in life, how certain fruits tasted best in the afternoon sun, how the river near the edge of town looked in the early morning, and how memories of childhood could bring both laughter and tears. These conversations, simple as they were, became moments of connection, building a bridge between their lives. Over time, Mara began to observe Aaron's daily habits. She noticed the way he helped his neighbors with tasks, how he treated even strangers with respect, and how he seemed to carry the weight of the town's tensions lightly, without letting them harden his heart. She realized that his bravery was not a single act but a reflection of his character. Every small gesture, every patient word, every thoughtful action added layers to her understanding of him. Meanwhile, Aaron watched Mara as well, learning about her hopes and fears. He saw a mother who loved her child fiercely, who had endured years of tension and suspicion in her community, yet remained open to the possibility of goodness. He understood her fear of judgment, the weight of expectations from those around her. But he also saw her courage, the courage to recognize his actions for what they were, to step beyond the invisible lines that divided their families. Lena, unaware of the deeper currents, continued to grow more comfortable around Aaron. She would often peek from behind the door when Mara visited, her eyes wide with curiosity and admiration. Aaron would greet her with a smile and she would shyly wave, slowly overcoming her initial fear. It was in these small moments that Mara realized just how important Aaron had become, not only to her daughter, but to herself. Despite the warmth building between them, tension remained. Rumors about Mara's visits to Aaron began to circulate quietly among their neighbors. Some people whispered that she was betraying her own family by forming a connection with someone from a rival neighborhood. They warned her of potential danger and questioned her judgment. Mara felt the weight of these whispers, but each time she thought of Aaron and what he had done for Lena, the fear lost a little of its power. She knew that his character was genuine and that their growing trust was real. One evening, Mara stayed a little longer than usual. They sat by the small window in Aaron's kitchen, watching the sun sink behind the rooftops. "I never expected to see someone like you in this town," she said quietly. Aaron looked at her, curious. "Someone who doesn't judge, who doesn't think in terms of sides and families but simply acts from the heart. It's rare." Aaron shook his head gently. "I didn't think of it as rare," he said. "I just did what I thought was right. Sometimes it's easy to forget that doing the right thing isn't always about who you are or where you come from. It's just about what you can do for others." Mara nodded, feeling a quiet warmth in her chest. She had always believed in morality and courage, but seeing it in action, in someone she could witness and trust, gave her a new perspective. Over the following days, Mara began to bring Lena along more often. She wanted her daughter to see the man who had protected her, to understand that kindness could come from unexpected places. Lena's laughter and playful questions softened the atmosphere, bringing a lightness to Aaron's home that he hadn't felt in a long time. Mara and Aaron would sometimes sit nearby, speaking quietly while Lena played, each moment deepening the sense of connection among them. But life was not entirely peaceful. Mara still faced judgment from some neighbors, and Aaron's own friends occasionally warned him about being too close to someone from another faction. Despite this, both of them remained steady in their actions, guided not by fear, but by the experiences they had shared. Each act of trust, each conversation, each visit reinforced their belief that courage and compassion were stronger than rumors or prejudice. As the weeks went on, Mara began to see Aaron not just as a protector of her daughter, but as someone whose presence brought a quiet stability to her own life. His calm demeanor, his honesty, and his willingness to act without expectation made her reconsider everything she had believed about people from the other side. And Aaron, in turn, found himself respecting Mara more deeply with each visit, admiring the way she balanced love, caution, and hope. By the end of this period, both Aaron and Mara understood that something important was forming between them. It was not yet a relationship defined by words or declarations, but it was a connection built on trust, gratitude, and the shared experience of facing danger and fear together. Lena's innocent joy served as a reminder of why their bond mattered and why their choices were significant. The town continued its routines, but a quiet shift was occurring. Where once suspicion and rivalry had dominated, small acts of kindness and understanding were beginning to take root. Aaron's bravery had created a ripple effect, reaching Mara's heart and slowly challenging old beliefs. And though challenges still lay ahead, the foundation of a deep and meaningful connection was being laid. One built on courage, trust, and the simple but profound realization that doing the right thing could change lives in ways no one could predict. Despite the growing bond between Aaron and Mara, life around them remained complicated. The town was small, and news traveled quickly, often twisted by fear and suspicion. Whispers about Mara's visits to Aaron began to reach the ears of both their families. Some people expressed concern, while others were openly critical. "You're putting yourself in danger," one neighbor warned Mara. "He comes from their side. You should stay away." Mara felt the weight of these words, but deep down, she knew they were meant to intimidate her. She also knew they did not reflect the truth of what she had seen and experienced. Aaron felt the tension as well. Though he had grown accustomed to judgment in the town, he had not expected Mara to be scrutinized because of him. He worried that his actions, though motivated by pure compassion, could bring unnecessary trouble to her and her daughter. He wanted to protect Lena, but he also wanted Mara to feel safe and respected. Every time they met, he could sense the subtle pressure pressing on her. The way she would glance nervously at the windows, listening for whispers, or the slight hesitation in her voice when others were nearby. One afternoon, Mara decided to speak openly with Aaron about the challenges they faced. "People are talking," she said quietly, sitting across from him at the small wooden table. "They don't understand why I come here, why I trust you. Some of them think it's dangerous. Some of them think I'm betraying my family." Aaron listened carefully, nodding with understanding. He reached out, gently placing his hand over hers. "I know," he said softly. "I can't control what people think, but I can promise you this. I will always do my best to keep you and Lena safe. Nothing else matters more to me." Hearing his words, Mara felt a wave of reassurance wash over her. There was honesty in Aaron's voice, a sincerity that could not be questioned. Still, the weight of social pressure was real. She had lived in this town her entire life, aware of old rivalries and the boundaries that were rarely crossed. Choosing to trust Aaron, to acknowledge the bond they were forming, meant stepping into a space that felt uncertain and risky. But she also knew that she could not ignore the truth she had seen in his actions. As days passed, the tension increased. Some of Mara's friends and family openly expressed concern, warning her of possible consequences if she continued visiting Aaron. At the same time, Aaron faced judgment from some of his neighbors, who believed he was compromising his own safety by building a connection with Mara's family. Each of these warnings tested their patience and courage, but both of them were determined not to let fear dictate their choices. Meanwhile, Lena continued to grow comfortable around Aaron. She would run to greet him when he arrived, her laughter filling the small house and lightening the atmosphere. Seeing the child's happiness reminded both Aaron and Mara of why they were persevering despite the judgment around them. Lena had experienced fear, but now she saw that trust could exist, even between people from different worlds. The child's innocent perspective gave Mara courage and reassured Aaron that their choices were making a positive impact. One evening, as the sun set behind the rooftops, Aaron and Mara found themselves sitting quietly on the small porch. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers, and the distant sound of the river added a peaceful rhythm to the scene. Mara spoke first, her voice soft but determined. "I've been thinking, maybe it's time I stop worrying about what others think. You've shown me that courage isn't just about fighting. It's about doing what is right even when it's hard. And I want to keep trusting you no matter what." Aaron smiled, feeling a deep sense of connection. "That means a lot to me," he said. "It's not easy, but the right choices rarely are. The important thing is that we don't let fear or prejudice stop us from doing what's right." Mara nodded, her heart swelling with admiration and gratitude. In that quiet moment, both of them understood that their bond had grown stronger than any rumor or judgment. However, life was never entirely calm. One day, a neighbor confronted Mara as she was leaving her house. "You shouldn't be going there," the woman said sharply. "It's not safe, and you know it. People will talk, and trouble might follow." Mara took a deep breath, holding her head high. "I appreciate your concern," she said steadily, "but I trust him. That's all I need to know." The encounter left Mara feeling both proud and apprehensive. She had stood up for her choices, but she also knew that judgment would continue. She realized that the path she was walking required courage, patience, and steadfastness. Aaron, aware of these challenges, continued to reassure her, always emphasizing safety, respect, and honesty. Their shared commitment to doing what was right strengthened the trust and understanding between them. Meanwhile, the bond between Aaron and Mara began to influence others in subtle ways. Friends and family who had once been wary started to notice the positive impact of their connection. Lena's happiness, the kindness that emanated from their interactions, and the integrity of their choices all served as small reminders that courage and compassion could overcome fear. Though change was slow, the seed had been planted in the hearts of those who observed them. One particularly quiet evening, Mara and Aaron sat together, sharing memories from their childhoods. They laughed at small, funny stories and occasionally paused to reflect on lessons learned through challenges they had faced. Mara realized that her admiration for Aaron went beyond gratitude. It was rooted in respect, trust, and a deep understanding of his character. Aaron, in turn, recognized Mara's strength and wisdom, and he felt a growing sense of connection that was quiet but profoundly meaningful. By the end of this period, both Mara and Aaron had faced fear, judgment, and societal pressure, yet they had chosen to continue nurturing their bond. The town's whispers persisted, but neither of them allowed external opinions to dictate their choices. They had learned that courage was not simply physical bravery, it was the strength to stand by what was right, to protect those who could not protect themselves, and to trust in the goodness of others despite fear. The little victories, the laughter of Lena, the quiet moments of shared trust, the small steps toward mutual understanding, became a foundation for what was to come. Both Mara and Aaron knew that their journey was not over, and that challenges would continue to arise. But they also knew that the bond they were forming was strong enough to face those challenges. Together, they had created a space where kindness, trust, and courage could thrive, even in a town shadowed by suspicion and old grudges. And so, as the sun set over the rooftops, casting long, soft shadows across the streets, Aaron and Mara sat together in quiet understanding. They had faced judgment, fear, and doubt, yet they had chosen to trust each other. And in that choice, they discovered that true courage was not only about protecting others in a single moment. It was about standing firm in the face of adversity, honoring one's principles, and nurturing bonds that could withstand the challenges of the world around them. As time passed, the bond between Aaron and Mara grew even stronger. Their connection, built on trust, courage, and shared experience, had become a quiet but powerful force in their lives. Mara's admiration for Aaron had grown into a deep respect, and Aaron's regard for Mara had blossomed into a steady and sincere affection. Lena, too, had become a bridge between them, her laughter and innocence reminding both adults why their bond mattered so much. However, their growing closeness did not go unnoticed. Some neighbors continued to watch, whispering about the unusual friendship. Mara had learned to ignore the criticism, focusing instead on the truth she knew. Aaron had saved her daughter's life, and he had done so without expectation or fear. Aaron, for his part, remained careful and thoughtful, always ensuring that his actions were respectful and considerate of Mara and Lena. One afternoon, Mara brought Lena to Aaron's house. The little girl ran ahead, her small feet tapping happily on the worn floorboards. "Aaron," she called, hugging him tightly. Aaron smiled, lifting her gently and spinning her around. Her laughter filled the room, a sound that seemed to lift the weight of worry and suspicion from the air. Mara watched from the doorway, her heart swelling with gratitude and warmth. "Thank you for being here for her," Mara said softly, stepping into the room. Aaron looked at her, his expression gentle. "I don't need thanks," he replied. "I care about her and I care about you. That's enough." Mara felt a surge of emotion. She realized that her feelings for Aaron were more than just gratitude. They were rooted in admiration, respect, and a growing affection. But she also knew that life in their town was complicated, and that such feelings had to be handled with care. Yet seeing Aaron's honesty, his integrity, and his consistent kindness gave her confidence that their bond could withstand the challenges ahead. Over the following weeks, Mara and Aaron began spending more time together, often including Lena, in their activities. They would take walks through the quiet streets, visit the riverbank, or simply sit together in Aaron's small garden, enjoying the warmth of the sun and the gentle breeze. In these moments, they discovered a sense of peace that had been missing in their lives for years. The town around them remained cautious, but the simple joy and trust they shared began to influence those who observed them. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Mara spoke openly to Aaron about her feelings. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she said. "About you, about us, and about what you did for Lena. I've realized that gratitude alone cannot express what I feel. I admire you, Aaron. I respect you. And I think I care for you more than I expected." Aaron felt a warmth spread through his chest. "I feel the same," he said quietly. "What we have, what we've built, it's important to me, and I want to continue protecting it, nurturing it, no matter what others say or think." Mara nodded, feeling a sense of relief and joy. She had been cautious, aware of the potential consequences, but now she understood that the bond they shared was strong enough to endure. Their connection had grown through shared trust, courage, and kindness, and it was rooted in actions, not words alone. As the days continued, their bond became more evident to those around them. Friends and family who had once been wary began to notice the positive effects: the laughter of Lena, the calm strength of Aaron, the quiet confidence of Mara. Slowly, old tensions began to soften. While not everyone approved, the example of courage, trust, and integrity began to influence the community in subtle ways. Aaron, Mara, and Lena continued to create a life marked by trust and understanding. They faced challenges, of course, but they faced them together. Each decision, each act of care, and each moment of honesty reinforced their connection. The town, once dominated by fear and suspicion, began to see that kindness and bravery could create meaningful change. In time, Mara realized that the choice to trust Aaron had transformed her own life. She felt stronger, more confident, and more hopeful about the future. Aaron had shown her that courage was not only about facing danger, it was about standing firm in one's principles, protecting those who cannot protect themselves, and nurturing bonds that could withstand the challenges of the world. Lena, too, thrived in this environment. She felt safe, loved, and cared for. Learning from the example of courage and kindness that surrounded her, her laughter became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in a town shadowed by division, trust and love could flourish. By the end of this period, Aaron and Mara had not only built a strong connection with each other but had also planted seeds of change in the hearts of those around them. Their story was one of bravery, trust, and the power of doing what is right, even in the face of fear. And as they sat together one quiet evening, watching the sun dip below the rooftops, they knew that their journey had only just begun. Together, they had created a life marked by courage, compassion, and unwavering trust. A life where kindness and integrity could thrive no matter the challenges that lay ahead. And in that life they found hope, strength, and the quiet joy of knowing that one brave choice could change everything.